Coverage of Mark Carney's trip to Europe. He's set to meet with leaders in Brussels ahead of the NATO summit getting underway on Tuesday. And joining me now is Lori Williams. She is a political analyst. Lori, thanks for being here.
Great to be with you, Renee.
So as the Prime Minister heads to Europe this week, what are some tangible things that he might be able to come back with?
There are two sort of main elements to his agenda. One is military, the other economic. And on the economic front, this first meeting in Brussels with EU leaders, that's going to focus more on diversifying supply chains. And in that area, because of his economic expertise, his experience, his connections, and so forth, I expect that his voice will carry a lot more weight in that meeting than in the NATO meeting. The NATO meeting is focusing much more on military procurement, which, again, it could have economic implications. We know that Canada is increasing its military budget. Some of that spending is going to go to actually producing materials in Canada that will actually generate economic activity. Canada is going to be negotiating about joining Rearm Europe, might be eligible for loans through the EU for that, through NATO. He also will be looking at, now that he's made this pledge to increase defense spending to the 2% that Canada has not met up until this point. That's going to put him in a less defensive position in the NATO talks. But there again, because there's so much going on in the world between Russia and the Middle East, I think that the talks will be sort of brief, focused, trying to get the best they can in terms of what they can accomplish. And try to sort of dial down the concerns, if you like, the tensions that may exist, particularly if Donald Trump does attend and stays at that meeting, because he's going to likely make higher demands both for spending, and he's also going to make more demands with respect to dealing with Russia, Ukraine.
Yes, that leads me into my next question. So Carney has announced we'll finally hit the NATO target of 2% on defense. Is that going to get a big round of applause at the NATO summit?
Well, it will earn Canada a little bit of a pass, but of course there are going to be discussions about increasing that number to 5%, a much higher target. But of course, the timelines for that are longer term. So it's the bare minimum that Canada needs to have going into and having credibility in that particular summit. And then it becomes a matter of deciding what Canada can do as part of other connections and alliances to both generate economic growth in Canada and also make its credible contribution, not just to security amongst the NATO countries, but of course Arctic sovereignty is increasingly a concern, as well as the war in Ukraine, both of which are key concerns for Canada.
All right, Lori, that is our time. Thank you very much for being here. That is Lori Williams, political analyst.